Now let's start for the details, and we are starting off from the labor unions. And this afternoon, the Trade Union Congress says it remains hopeful that government's planned imposition of 15% of value-added tax on power consumers above lifeline level will not see the light of day. The umbrella body of all labor unions in Ghana are holding an emergency meeting to discuss the way forward on getting government to reverse its decision. Speaking to Joy News, Brother Suga, ahead of today's engagement, Secretary General of the TUC, Dr. Yalba, lamented the country's workforce is already overburdened with taxes, hence the need for government to consider his decision. He's been addressing the media.
The Minister for Finance sent a certain letter to the two distributors of electricity, NEDCO and ECG. And we don't think it is right. And as organized labor, we have gathered here this morning to express our views on it. So I'll go straight to the written text on behalf of the leadership of organized labor. Organized labor press statement on the imposition of value-added tax on residential customers of electricity. And I want to emphasize this one, they isolated only residential customers. We have cited a circular from the Ministry of Finance signed by the Minister for Finance, Ken Oforiatta, dated 12 December 2023. The letter is directing the two main electricity distribution companies, i.e. ECG and NEDCO, to start the implementation, and I quote, to start the implementation of VAT for residential customers of electricity above the maximum consumption of levels specified for block charges for lifeline units in line with Section 35 and 37 and the first Schedule 9 of Value Added Tax Act 2013 Act A70, effective 1st January 2024. According to the Minister for Finance, this measure is part of government's medium-term revenue strategy and the IMF-supported post-COVID-19 program for economic growth. The implications for residential customers of ECG and NEDCO are the following. First, the cost of electricity will go up by a minimum of 15%. And then, all residential customers who consume above the lifeline of 30 kilowatts hour will pay the 15% VAT. It is worth noting that 30 kilowatts hour of electricity allows the lifeline customers to use only 3 LED bulbs, one electric iron, 1 television, and 1 fan. When I was at Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives swearing in, the information I had was that it's 2 bulbs. So I let it out there. Then I did more, and then they said it's 3 LED bulbs. That's not different. How can you say that? You know, and I want to emphasize that this 30 kilowatts hour thing, lifeline, it was 50 since the early 90s. Then in 2022, PURC changed it from 50 to 30. They did it quietly at the back door. Nobody knew it. It was when this letter came that we were doing the investigation, we found that it was 30, not 50. In fact, the first calculations we made was based on 50, until we found out it was 30. What this means, comrades, is that a residential customer who uses more than 3 bulbs and a refrigerator will pay the VAT. The lifeline does not include VAT. Doesn't include fridge. As workers, we put our things in the fridge so that when we go late, there is something for you. But this is denying us that. So for me, working for you, going in the traffic for 2-3 hours, getting home, and I want my thing to be refrigerated and I have to pay VAT on it. We note that since 2022, electricity tariffs have gone up by 73%. So in 2021, if you were paying 100 Ghana cedis, now that same customer is paying 173 Ghana cedis. It is also important and very, very sad, comrades, very, very sad to note that why government is imposing VAT on us, residential customers of electricity. Plans are far advanced to remove VAT on mineral exploration in Ghana for wealthy multinational mining companies. And the media reports that we have read indicate that the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, in a meeting with Ghana Chamber of Mines, assured them, Abu Jinabo, assured them that that policy will be implemented in the first quarter of 2024. What kind of life is that? What kind of? You impose tariffs on poor consumers of electricity, and then the wealthy multinationals, you are going to remove it. And he met them and assured them that by the end of this quarter, they are going to remove VAT from exploration for these rich companies. I mean, so what kind of country are we living in? Normally, in situations like what we have in Ghana today, when our economy is misbehaving and so on, what happens normally is that our mineral resources, because those of you who have studied economics, minerals, gold and the rest, they are anti-cyclical. So if you have checked, when economies go down, people invest in gold. So if you have gold and there is a problem and your economy is going down, you use the gold to prop it up. That's why they were trying this oil for gold, whatever they are calling it. In a situation like this, that's what we expect. When there are shocks, both internal and external, you use your mineral resources because this is God-given. You use it to deal with the shocks, to cushion your economy from this external and internal shock. But in Ghana, sadly, that is not the case. It's always the poor people in this country, including pensioners, who bear the brunt. And we should not allow that to continue. We should not. So today, organized labor, we have come together again. And our message to government is very simple. We cannot pay VAT on electricity. Period. We will not. We cannot pay VAT on electricity. We will not pay.
Meanwhile, the General Secretary of the Ghana National Registered Nurses and Midwives Association and the Ghana National Association of Teachers have also been speaking at the news conference.
This came as a big surprise to us all, to think of the fact that our usage of electricity in our homes was going to be taxed was a big thing, because you and I know salaries in Ghana, not only in Ghana, in the sub-region and most of Africa, is not the best. We are living from hand to mouth. You can't really save for much if you don't have alternative way of generating income, and it's just your salary. So to think that the energy you have to use in your home also needs to be taxed. And think of the fact that mining companies, multi-billion companies, that have all the money to pay taxes, the thought is to waive VAT for them, then it leaves much to be desired. What we expect is that we should be left alone to enjoy the little electricity that we have. And if there's any taxes, it's those multi-million companies that should be taxed to provide revenue for the economy. And medium to long-term goals for generation of income or revenue for the country, I think we've been there before when we were discussing the DDEP. As organized labor, we made strong suggestions and called on government to take it up. I have not seen that even one of those suggestions have been taken. And to think that we are going to be burdened with more taxes, it is not the best. We are being burdened with taxes, and it doesn't even allow people to be able to what? Flourish, to be able to nurture their families in terms of their children's education, their health, and all of that. So the decision we have taken here, I think, is unanimous. It's unanimous. And we are saying no to this VAT on residential usage of electricity. And come by the deadline, before the deadline, we expect that a letter should be out there to annul the earlier one. And then we shall all be at peace. I think that is the only way to go. And that is my word for you all.
Given the times that we are in, any increment or any thing like this the VAT aspect that we're talking about, we're certainly going to push more people below the poverty line. And we all know, if you ask the security people, they will tell you that when they are discussing security issues of poverty is one of the key components or variables when you are talking about national security anywhere. So to push people below the poverty line is a recipe for disaster. Okay, and you'll be inviting more chaos and anarchy. And I don't want to believe that that is what they are expecting from the people of this country. So once we have said no, let it be no. If they have anything to say, they should come to the table, put it on the table. We are reasonable people who will have a look at it. But for now, it is no, no, no. And it's still no.
So away from this, the Electricity Company of Ghana says it is yet to commence the implementation of the value-added tax on end-market consumers. The company says it will need further clarification from the Ghana Revenue Authority on how to proceed with its implementation of the levy. Leila Bubakar is External Communications Manager for the ECG.
So the value-added tax announcement that came into effect in January has appalled a lot of our customers. The truth of the matter is that we haven't started implementing it, even though that letter says that it should have been activated in January. The reason being, we still have to understand how to implement this tax. So we are having active conversations with the Ministry of Finance, with the Ghana Revenue Authority, and with other stakeholders who have also brought their concerns forward. So for now, there's no value-added tax as announced included in residential tariff or residential customers buying electricity. For now, it's still the old status quo. We've maintained an active engagement with our stakeholders, who mostly comprise of the power generators, to have them on the same page with us in terms of payments. I think since last year, our revenue generation has increased, and we found a way of ring fencing or having an agreement with the IPPs to hold on to the legacy debts that we owe them. But we are very up to date with the current bills that come to our desk. We try as much as possible to pay off those debts so that they can also function as business.
So let's explore this issue, what exactly the trade union groups are willing to do or willing to enforce on government ahead of the expiration of the timelines that they've provided today at the news conference. Joining us via Zoom is the General Secretary of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, Thomas Musa. Mr. Musa, you're welcome to the Pulse here on Joy News.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to yourself and all your listeners. And
great.
Also belated Happy New Year.
Same to you. Same to you. And let's get down to The business of the day. 35 labor unions united under one umbrella to force government to withdraw the decision to impose 15 VATs on electricity. How willing or how far are you willing to go to ensure that your demands are met?
So thank you very much. We are not using force. We are only being reasonable. That is all. When reasonable people meet, they do reasonable things. So we are only asking for what any reasonable human being will ask. That is all. Because we are dealing with our beloved country called Ghana. And as we speak now, many people are below the poverty line. Aside that one, if you recall, before we go to this particular stage, we told ourselves that we need to prevent what we call the desert that is catching up with us, because people were going into the forest to cut trees. And so we started this rural electrification and all that, and many other projects to ensure that we hook all those in the rural areas onto the national grid. And we've been doing that to make sure that we protect the environment and all that. With this increment, it will push many people below the poverty line. When that happens, you are encouraging illegal connection. Student children who have to learn in the rural areas, they will not have access to electricity, because if you don't pay your bills, your light will certainly be cut off.
So the point is that those who are below the lifeline, your understanding or your assumption is that it will have no effect on them?
No, the question is, you see, once you increase it, you see, it is like kenke. You see, there are some commodities that the poor will always will need it to survive. And one of them is electricity. The electricity is not only for the rich. We have certain commodities that you want to touch it, you need to be careful. We are talking here about water. We are talking here about shelter, and something like electricity. These things are basic necessities of life, which ordinary people will need, which the ordinary person will need to survive. So all ordinary things or all basic necessities of life must not be taxed like that. When you are talking about 15%, when you add it, what is going to happen? It means that the people who cannot afford, you push them below the poverty line. And once you push them below the poverty line, they cannot afford that particular commodity. So once they cannot afford it, not only they themselves, but their children and their dependents will suffer for it. So when we met today, when we examined the issues carefully, we are telling the minister that, look, the honorable minister that, look, that is not the way to go. And we've given up to the 31st of January for him to correct what has happened, and that money, or that this particular 15%, we are not in support and we will not agree to it. And in fact, there is one particular thing we need to also put on the table here.
And that is? At
all material time, we have what we call social dialogue. If the minister feels strongly that we need to get this particular thing done, he should come to the organized labor platform, bring all the documents and all his arguments onto the table, and we'll certainly look at it.
So Mr. Musa, you are saying that there was no consultation, if you like, or there was no information ahead of this on your platform?
Nothing. We I didn't know. It was the letter was all over the place, social media.
Yeah, more like a New Year message.
Yes, and once we saw, we needed to react, because, like I have said, electricity is a basic necessity of life. It's a basic commodity which the ordinary man will need to survive. Not only the ordinary man, but together with his or her dependents. And when you put 50% VAT on it, you are telling that particular person together with his dependent that they should go below the poverty line. And that will create chaos and anarchy. Look, when you are dealing with the national security matters, one of the key variables of national security issue is a human security. And so these are things that will help the human being to survive. And when you want to take that particular thing away, you are encouraging illegality, people doing illegal connections. People, those who cannot afford, their children will have to be in the dark in the night because they cannot pay.
And how does this and how does this threaten the security of the individual? How does this even threaten national security, as you mentioned?
My brother, when people are there, have you not heard that the angry man is an angry man? I hope you have heard it before.
Right.
Good. So when people are there and they cannot meet their basic necessity of life, it's a recipe for disaster. If you are in a country and the people cannot afford water, cannot afford electricity, cannot afford accommodation, cannot afford food, transport and all those things, you are in for trouble.
Right. Mr. Musa, before I let you go, let me ask a final question. And you have provided a deadline for government to reverse this decision, 31st of January. And then if by 31st of January, the decision still stands that government still want to impose this on electricity, what will be your next line of action?
I want to believe that government will not push that to that particular bridge.
If that happens, what action will you take?
I believe that government will not push that to that particular temptation. But when we get there, we will certainly cross it.
Strike, I guess.
Oh yeah, no, I think you can do your own guess, but you are dealing with organized labor here. And I believe that government, and for that matter, the Honorable Minister will not lead us to that particular temptation. Because we are talking about next week here, and we believe that we want to see the letter as soon as possible, so that we can save our brothers and sisters from going below the poverty line, which will not be in the best interest of anybody.
The assumption is that the country is in crisis, and all of us must help to contribute to bring it out of the hole that the country finds itself. Because we are an IMF program, key condition is that we should generate revenue, and this is one of the key, avenues government is seeking to generate revenue. Isn't it fair that we all contribute a little to bring ourselves out of the hole?
You are a parent, and I am a parent. If your salary is 100 Ghana cedis, or even 200 Ghana cedis, and you want your children and your wife to understand you, you go to the table and tell them, my family, this is my problem. Believe you me, your family will understand, and they will even give you better ideas, give you alternatives as to how together you people will come out of that particular challenge. Because your father's problem should be your problem. But if your father thinks that he can do it alone and he will not communicate to the wife or involve the children or not involve the children in the issue, whatever happens, the father should blame him or herself. You put yourself under unnecessary pressure and stress. What we are saying is that whatever they have, they should come to the table.
Right.
They should put it on the table.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas Musa. He's the General Secretary of the Ghana National Association of Teachers.
God bless you.
Together with 34 other labor unions, this afternoon, they made a demand of government to withdraw the imposition of VAT on electricity by the 31st of January, or they will take action against government. We don't know which action they intend to take, but clearly they are not ruling out strike. Well, this is the pulse here on Joy News. I'm now